Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner AFRY. AFRY is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. It's a big pleasure for me to welcome you, Shweta, to Urbanistica podcast. Hey, and welcome.
Hi, Mustafa.
How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you again in Sweden.
Yes. We have been first in touch on LinkedIn, then in Dubai, then back. Now you're here.
Yes.
Welcome to Helsingborg.
Thank you.
So how are you doing?
It's been great. We are at the Urban Future Global Conference, and I'm part of the Young Future Leaders program.
Yeah.
So it's been amazing, and the weather's great.
Yeah. When did you arrive to Helsingborg?
I came 3 days ago, and one day just went around, explored a little bit. Then we had the Young Leaders program, and then following which today we are at the second day of the conference. So time's passing by.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you have a very interesting story, and we start with you first. So tell us about you and tell us about your passion.
Okay, so I'm Shweta Gandhi. About me, I would just like to put it as I'm an urban practitioner. I started as an architect. I did my bachelor's in Dubai, and then I worked a little bit in the public sector, moved ahead and did my master's at the University of Oxford in sustainable urban development, following which I returned back to Dubai. And now I work as an urban planner. And I do a lot of things where I advocate for SDG 11. I, get a chance to speak with young people and bring the focus back on how we can make cities and communities sustainable. So in short, I'm a young urban practitioner.
Yes. And tell us more about like where you grew up, your childhood, what you study.
I'm an Indian, but I have been brought up in Dubai. So my parents moved to Dubai when I was quite young, and I've been brought up in a very different setting where, as Dubai is known to be a place where expatriates from different countries come together. So my upbringing was around people from different cultures, different countries, and different languages. At the same time, my education in UK led me to look at things a little more differently. So I like to call myself as somebody who's traveled quite a lot, but still believes in being rooted to culture.
Yeah. What are you passionate about?
Cities, obviously. That's one thing. But the other thing that I'm really passionate about is just striving for change. And that change can be in the context of cities. The change can be in the context of how we work, or the change can be as simple as, picking up a new hobby.
Yeah. But why cities? Is there a story or not? Just happen?
I like to say I'm a city girl at heart because, being brought up in a city like Dubai, which has actually grown in front of my eyes. So when I was a little kid, each day or like each weekend, we would drive around the downtown in Dubai, where I would see the Burj Khalifa be built.
Yeah.
Okay, that visionary city that we know of Dubai today, I as a child have seen it grow. And today I'm also witnessing how it is striving to be more livable. And not just limit itself to being a global image. So I think the love for city comes from there. And then the other aspect of, the love for cities is just the fact that each and every city has its own identity, has something new to offer. So as I have had the opportunity to travel around the world, because of the kind of work I do or the kind of education background I have, just the experience that each and every city gives you is something that mesmerizes me.
Yeah, but you're also part of SDS and Youth Network.
Yes.
Tell us about that as well.
So while I was doing my master's, the SDS in Youth has a fellowship called as a Local Pathways Fellowship. And that fellowship focuses predominantly on SDG 11. And SDG 11 is making cities and communities sustainable. So I was part of the fellowship for the first 10 months, after which I applied to become the project officer at the fellowship. And once I was the project officer, I thought that while we are young people from 103 countries trying to come up with solutions which are more localized for our cities, how about we can establish an exchange? And that's how, with one of my colleagues and the team at Local Pathways Fellowship, I started a mentorship program. And that mentorship program brought together around 400 to 500 young people between the age group of 18 to 30 to mobilize and exchange to make cities and communities more sustainable practically, and not just, in terms of conversation.
Yeah. Do you still... can I call it work there, or what do you call it?
I'm still associated with the organization, but definitely I advocate for SDG 11 with SDS and Youth, but I have progressed ahead in my career, and now I work as an urban planner in Dubai for AECOM. So yeah, that's where I am now.
Nice. So today we're going to talk about like a new district in the making.
Yes.
And like my first question is going to be like, how important is it to understand how we live, like in order to shape what we design moving ahead?
A very interesting question. So the conversation of new districts in the making is so important because as we know that by 2050, 70% of the world is going to be urbanized. Population is going to be living in the cities, and there are more and more neighborhoods and districts and master plans that are being designed as we talk right now.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when this is happening, the climate crisis is in front of us. IPCC has given us 8 years. So the conversation of how well do we design these cities is so important. But I would just like to take one step back and just understand, how are we living in cities? Because the pandemic has been a great learning curve for me as an urban practitioner to understand that cities are not just about working in a place or coming back home to chill and watch Netflix. It's about going on that early morning walk, dropping your kids to school, having a small little park next to your house and experiencing nature around your, neighborhood. So while we envision the next, 50 years, what we are going to build, it is important to question how we live today, and in order to plan for a future as to how we live in the next 50 years. Because technology is changing the way we live, but the human scale or the social beings that we are, I think we're understanding its importance more now than before. So the way we live is very, very important for me as an urban practitioner to understand, to move ahead and design better districts.
But I mean, like the way you mean, it's important to understand how we live now.
Yes.
Before we start to sketch and draw the future.
Exactly.
But I mean, like we already know how we live in the cities, or is it different?
That takes us to another conversation where, again, each and every city is not the same. Each and every neighborhood is not the same. And based on the context that you are in, how people live and how they perceive to live is different. And especially in a world where, travel is possible now that COVID is, I can say, behind us. We live in a globalized community where people want to move places, experience new things. So each time you are looking at a new master plan, your approach has to be different. Your approach has to be looking at the kind of population that lives there, the kind of demographics that is there, the kind of weather conditions that affect. And when you look at all of this, you're going to ask the question, how are the people that reside or are going to reside in this new neighborhood or new district going to live? So the question is, as for me, I ask myself not as how is Shweta going to be living in this neighborhood, but the people that are going to reside in this new neighborhood or new district, how are they going to live over here, and how can I make that experience better for them?
And also you work a lot with young professionals, and you stress the importance of young planners or architects to be part of this. Why? I mean, do the young professionals have some experience to add to this, or they should just follow the seniors and do the job?
I just feel like definitely learning from people who have been in the industry for 20 years, 30 years is important. Especially the learnings where they felt that they messed up. I think learning not just from the successes but also their failures is very important. But as young people, we are going to shape not just our future but also the future of the next generation. So if we do not offer a chair in a boardroom or a decision making panel to a young person and ask that young person, what are your problems? What is the change that you want to see? Or what is that one thing that you can offer differently than what is being already done? Then, they also, as a young person, I also think we can challenge the way things are done. And if nobody is going to question how things are done, we are still going to be fighting the same wars that we are from the past. So to overcome that, offering a young person a chair on a table is very, very important.
So what if, like, let's say I'm a young professional and I just started to work, and the company or the organization, they're not really listening to me or paying attention to what I say. So how can I change the mindset of my manager? What should I do? Do you have any advice?
So based on my experience, firstly, I've been very lucky to have seniors who are open to a conversation. So for a young person listening, I would say first approach, because if you are just going to sit down there and think nobody's going to listen to me, it's never going to happen. So one thing is always approach. And the second thing I've realized, a written communication goes a long way. So if you have an idea or if you have a suggestion, put it down on an email and send it to your boss. Because maybe you will, stutter, or you might not get your seniors' attention when you are in an office because, they are very busy. They have other things to tackle. But a short 100-word paragraph explaining your concern or explaining the idea that you had that you would like to, try it out, just send an email. And maybe they'll never reply. Maybe the reply will come in a 1 week time. Or maybe they'll actually set up a meeting with you to discuss this further. But until and unless you as a young person will not take that effort of sending something in or approaching somebody, nobody's going to listen to you.
Okay. So like the young professionals should like take the action or take the lead.
Take the lead of just approaching.
Yeah.
Yes. Once you approach somebody, where it goes, how it goes, it can probably become better than what you could have even thought. Or it can probably even be where they send you back with a suggestion and you can work on it furthermore.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to approach. I think that's the first step.
What if my manager is not listening to me? Should I change job?
No, you shouldn't be changing jobs. You should be looking out for mentors, because it's very important that your boss cannot be your only point of contact at your workplace.
Okay.
You can look out for more seniors, because when you're at an organization, there are multiple people in the organization. At the same time, I, in my career, really feel what worked for me or is working for me is networking. And don't be limited to network only within the organization that you are a part of. Definitely, that's your first place of contact. But there are, in today's day and time, there are online forums. You can actually reach out to people on LinkedIn. That's how we met.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So reach out people on LinkedIn, follow people on LinkedIn. And if not that, there are online platforms. There are and now that we are back to meeting in person and traveling, attend conferences, as a young person, because just by meeting more people, what you will also realize is probably what questions you have, you already have answers elsewhere. So don't look for advice only from one person. Look for look for a mentor or advice, or connect with as many people as possible, because networking takes a long way. And networking is not just about I want to change my job, so now I'm going to start networking.
Yeah, this is like, I don't like this as well. Like, people think LinkedIn is there only when you want to look for a job.
Exactly. It's
so fun.
Yeah. So, when you want to network with people, put yourself out there. I'm pretty sure it takes a lot of effort. I know it. But when you start networking with people, what you also realize is the kind of work they do. And that will help you understand if you still want to continue doing what you're doing. Because, when you're a little child, and if you see something different, you're going to crawl towards it. But as adults, we completely forget that and we stay in our shell. Yeah. So the more you talk to people, the more you network, you find a mentor to guide you. I think you can learn a lot.
Yeah. And also, like, why I'm asking you this, because you're like part of this community, especially with the organization that you work with. So it's interesting for me to listen to you, but also I know we have many students, we have many young professionals. Sometimes when let's talk about myself now. Like, when I started a new company, I was like very shy in telling what I'm thinking about. Let's say we are in the project and so many experts around the table, and I was like, maybe my idea is not really good, maybe my idea is stupid, so I will be silent. So I did this when I graduated. So I guess many also is doing this because they feel like, what do we have to contribute with? Maybe you also like doing an internship as well.
Yeah.
So what is your reflection? What do you have as an advice for young people but coming fresh from universities?
I think this is what someone told me. So this is like a second-hand advice,
okay.
and not first-hand advice. When I first graduated from architecture school, I went and joined a company and a team where we were doing urban projects. And my boss over there on the first or the second day said, this is the best time in life to look stupid, because you're straight out of college.
Yeah.
And even if you mess up, it's okay.
Yeah.
So the first 6 months I stuck to that. And even sometimes now, even after working for 2 to 3 years and finishing masters and growing a little bit more wiser, I hope, I just feel like it's okay to voice out what you're thinking. And maybe sometimes it's stupid, or maybe sometimes it doesn't make sense, but someone else is going to help you make it better. But until and unless you don't voice it out or you don't say it, that idea is always just going to be in your head, and you will always think, I should have, or I must, eventually someday I will. So I just think that when you're right out of college and it's your first job, I'm sure it's very nervous. I was super nervous. I still get nervous. But one thing that I keep in my mind, and I even kept back then, is this is the best time to make mistakes. And allow yourself to make more mistakes, because it's the mistakes that you learn from. Because if you were going to do everything right from the first time, you would never know what growth is like.
Yeah.
So yeah, make mistakes. They're good.
So just talk and tell your ideas. Don't care so much. Of course, you need to think about them,
yes,
but
yes.
In the end, don't keep them for yourself. Like share your ideas.
Yeah, share your ideas, because maybe the thing that you think is not that great.
Yeah, you don't know. But maybe you inspire someone, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you give them a new perspective altogether.
Yeah. So I'm back to urban planning and goal number 11. So when we work, sometimes we say, okay, should we think global? Should we think about local? Now, like we are attending Urban Future, we have people from all around the world, So how can we find the balance between in our projects to link the local to global and global to local?
I'll answer this question in two ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please, in details.
In details. I am a firm believer of context. I feel context is key when you're approaching any urban problem, because that will define your solution. But at the same time, I, as a practitioner, also acknowledge that globally, there are other projects or other problems which are similar to my problem. How about I learn about them? I understand how did they approach it. I take the learnings of what worked for them, what did not work for them, and then try to apply the same principles, not a copy-paste situation, but try to apply the same principles and contextualize the solution. Because why reinvent the wheel all over again? So we all can learn from global practices happening all around the world and then approach our local problems in a way that they are very much contextual, but they are very much relevant in the scheme of, global presence. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. But also, like, how do we, because when you look at a global reference project, then you try to implement it at home, then you kind of trying to copy paste what people did in other country, maybe it's not fitting to the local context. So how do we find the balance?
So what I personally do as an urban planner a lot of times is there's an exercise called as benchmarking. So benchmarking is you go out there, you look at, what other people are doing and similar to your problem, but don't stop at benchmarking. Move ahead and create like a matrix. Once you create a matrix, and that matrix is to map or from all the solutions that you've studied as part of your benchmarking, what is it that I can take home and what is it that I need to leave behind? Because it will definitely not work at home or where I'm working, right? So that matrix is your first layer of filter. Then the second step is all the learnings that they had, keep it at back of your mind, and now look at your problem from a fresh perspective. How am I going to solve this with all the knowledge that I have gathered? And when you do that, you as a practitioner are thinking about just your problem. It's just that you now have a vast amount of knowledge on how to approach it. So there is no copy pasting, but it's just educating yourself about how to probably take that first step or learn from how people are dealing with such problems.
Yeah.
I hope that helps, answer your question.
Yeah, very interesting. And also, tell me, because in your career, you work, but also you were part of an organization. Is it rewarding? Some people say, oh, why should I involve myself in such organizations? Just taking time. So tell us a bit about how is it to be part of an organization, to work with cities, but as a volunteer?
One thing is I definitely have my day job. I'm an urban planner, a full-time practitioner. But at the same time, I'm advocating for SDG 11, connecting with different people. And I feel that I would not be great at my day job if I wasn't connecting with people, if I wasn't having that exchange, if I wasn't, talking to more people about what I do and what they do, and constantly trying to understand how to make my practice better, I would not be a better practitioner.
Yeah.
So I personally do this for myself, But at the same time, now that I feel that I'm in a position where I can influence more young people, I would say that don't do something that you definitely love and are passionate about. I'm passionate about cities. I love what I do. As my job title also says, but don't keep yourself limited to your job title, because a job title can change tomorrow. You can move organizations, you can, go up the ladder, you can tomorrow decide, I don't want to do this, I just want to become an artist. But what will stay with you is the learnings that you have through your exchange and the community that you build around yourself and are a part of.
Yeah.
And this is not just for professional growth, but it's also for personal growth, because a big part of what we do as urban practitioners is not just technical competency, but it is also, life skills. How you carry yourself, how you are going to explain certain things to your client, or how are you going to convince a council member that this is the plan that you should go ahead with. Sometimes in public engagement projects, you might have to go down and speak to normal people in the community who don't understand what urban planning is. So when you are part of such organizations, you are also putting yourself out there to improve your skills.
Yeah. So do you, because sometimes you can have like a hobby that's not really related to your work, and sometimes you can work with organizations and hobbies that are related to your work. So sometimes people say, but imagine like I do the same after work, after my job, I still work with cities, maybe it's too much. So how is it for you? Did you also feel like, oh, it's too much, or no, you find it's fine, like it's even more cool because you're passionate about it? You don't need to have a hobby, let's say play hockey, and it's completely different from cities.
That's an interesting question. I just feel like, the best way to answer this is what I do at work is very different from what I do when I'm advocating for SDG 11. Also, when I advocate for SDG 11, I do it out of pure joy that I get for inspiring young people and bringing in some kind of change. But again, if there is a time when sometimes things at work are super busy or I can't make time, I have a team at SDS and Youth or the organizations that I'm affiliated with to give me that space. And you need to be very open in your communication and your commitment. Never overcommit, because overcommit will lead to exhaustion, and exhaustion will start making you hate what you actually love.
Yeah.
So never put yourself in that situation where you're going to exhaust yourself so much that, you absolutely don't want to be part of anything. Be a part of something small, but make it really big.
Yeah.
Okay. Rather than trying to do everything and then in the end, it affects you, your health, mentally and physically. So I try to keep that balance. And when things get busier, I just take a step back, reevaluate, and then move ahead.
Yeah. So it's important that also you reflect and evaluate what you do.
Yes.
And tell us about some project that you work with in Dubai, if you're allowed to talk. To tell about projects, because I know sometimes the projects are very,
so we do have confidentiality contracts and stuff, but I can't name projects.
But just explain.
Yes. So some of the projects that I am involved in the Middle East look at citywide vision strategies. So we are coming up with, say, 30 years down the lane or 50 years down the lane, what the city's image would look like. How do we strategize in order to come up with new projects within the city or new developments within the city? So it's like, really big, massive, transformational city visions that you design for and plan for. So that's one aspect of what I do. The other aspect is also at work. There is so much conversation around smart cities. And how to deliver smart cities. So I work with teams based globally, because at AECOM, AECOM is a big organization. We have people working in Singapore office, Hong Kong office, US office. So we all collaborate to understand how we can embed technology in our workflows. So that is one of the major parts of my role at AECOM, because I have background in smart cities and urban analytics, and then use that to make urban planning practice better. So that is the kind of work that I'm involved in. And the other kind of work that I'm also involved in is like a robust planning work, where we are dealing with coming up with development controls, writing regulations, supporting governments to come up with a regulatory framework, and how can they move ahead and make the vision strategy that we set a reality. So it's work at different scales, but yeah, this is what I'm involved in currently at my work at AECOM.
Yeah. When you, like, now, I guess you're working, like, as you mentioned, with the strategies, how the city will look like in the future. Can you give us tell us about some trends that's happening in Dubai or in the Middle East? Like, how is the future going to look like?
So one of the most interesting things, not particularly, something that I'm working on, but in terms of trends, Dubai announced the 2040 vision, and the 2040 vision says they envision Dubai to become the best city to live in the world. Okay, and that's a big promise.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
That's a big promise. But when you're looking at making it the best place to live in the world, you are talking about livability index. You're talking about happiness index. You're talking about productivity. You're talking about economic growth, sustainability. And it's so good to see Dubai, have a vision like this, because up until now, the focus was on growth. It was on creating that global image, which Dubai has established very successfully. But now we are going to look at having more transit-oriented development, having more soft mobility practices, which I'm seeing in Sweden right now as we sit here. So Dubai has taken that step already of thinking about how to make cities more sustainable and how to become the best city in the world to live in by 2040. So I think that's like a major big trend that is there, and which I feel as a young urban practitioner it's a great time to be working in Dubai and actually see it transform. So that is one thing. The other thing is the weather conditions in the Middle East are quite harsh in the summers. People have started understanding that we need to work with it rather than working around it. So the understanding of how to overcome climate challenges that we have in the Middle East is a big conversation. Also, with COP28 going to be hosted in Abu Dhabi, it's a big opportunity to see how we can move towards net zero cities, look at decreasing our carbon footprint, because that is something which is not that prominent in Middle East as of now, but the conversation has started. Clients are more open to having projects which are looking at reducing carbon emissions. So that is like one major I think thing to look forward to. Also, when we are at the same time, the good part is the Middle East is not slowing down. So the pace
slowing down
in terms of growth.
Okay,
Usually when you have to have all these targets to be met and different visions in place, maybe there's a perception that you need to take a step back. But UAE in general, or just Middle East, if I can talk for, is still growing at the same pace that it has been growing for the last couple of decades, and yet having visionary targets. And by visionary this time, it's not just about big things, but it's also about making it more sustainable and livable.
Yeah. So how to say, we two are urban planners. I work here in Scandinavia, you work in the Middle East. So what can we learn from Dubai? Do you have like any interesting advices or way of working to share with us? So
firstly, there's so much that I can take back from the
of course, I mean, it's like
it's like an exchange,
of course,
right?
and I think this is the beauty of the conversation.
Yeah, I think one thing that we all can, and which I really think is, the way Dubai has a very clear vision of what they want to become and a great implementation strategy. Because sometimes people can come up with great visions and have documents and documents of literature that we can read about and talk about, but how do we actualize it and implement the targets that we've put down on paper is something that is worth learning from Middle Eastern cities, because they set targets which completely on paper seem unachievable, but with the kind of rigor and the kind of support that we have from the leaders, or the kind of work that happens in the Middle East, it is quite nice to know that there's always room for change by pushing the envelope one step ahead. So I think that is something which I even try to think of in my own personal practice, that set visions which look like, set goals and visions which almost feel like unachievable, and then you probably will be successful in achieving some, and some you will eventually work on it. So I think that is something everyone can look at Middle Eastern cities and learn.
What is what are the challenges that you are facing as an urban planner?
The challenges that I face as an urban planner is the context that I work in is being designed for a global population. Okay. All the conversation I had with you about context and how demographics is important, I am practicing in a place where, the majority of the population is expatriate, and also the population is transient. So people are coming in, people are moving out. And then as an urban practitioner, how can you still think, local? Because you want to offer people something that makes everyone happy. But I think that's the beauty of Middle Eastern cities. They welcome people with open arms, and they want Dubai or Riyadh or, Doha to become home. And that for me is very, very interesting, but is also a very challenging thing to overcome.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation with you, and I how to say, I like when I get a new perspective, and you have this perspective. So thanks for sharing. It's very interesting to have this conversation.
Same here.
Yeah, and now we are moving to the last section of the episode, and the first question is going to be, what should urban planners stop doing when they plan cities?
I just think that's a difficult question, but I think the first thing as an urban planner, be it experienced, be it a young urban planner like me, I think we have to stop thinking that we can change the whole city in one go. Believe in small changes that have massive impacts rather than massive changes that have very little impact. So I feel that take a step back, understand, and start with small steps, because those small steps will eventually lead to a massive impact. That is what I think should be one thing that as urban planners we need to keep in mind.
Yeah. And if you are allowed to create one rule, like or policy, or to add one thing in a city, physical thing in all cities, so what will you add?
I think more open space.
Okay.
More open space. The character of the open space, what kind of open space, I would still say has to be very contextual. I'll go back to my initial thought process, but definitely the there's something so beautiful about taking a walk on an evening, or just sitting outside having a coffee by a water body or like a green space. I think we as humans didn't realize importance of open space until pandemic hit us. And I think it's very, very important that as an urban planner, and anyone who's drawing those plans or writing those policies, increase the percentage for open space in your plans.
Yeah.
Because currently they are not accounted for. Yeah.
When it comes to the public space, open space in Dubai, how is it?
It's so the Expo just got over. I think Expo was a great example of how people came together at a mega event, but also in an open space right under the Al Wasl Dome, and just sat there and then walked around Expo on those streets, of Expo, where they did not need a car to take them from one place to another. I think that is a great example for cities in the Middle East to understand that people appreciate gathering spaces. People appreciate just taking a walk around. And I think after Expo and with the pandemic, there's already so much work that has happened in the last 1.5 years. We have e-scooters introduced. We have bicycles that we can rent. Definitely weather conditions for few months is a challenge, but with design and with active design solutions, we can create more alleyways, we can create more shaded pathways, which can help people walk around and sit around and meet at least during the evenings in the summer.
Because now, how to say, Dubai is the plan of Dubai based on cars. Do you think that in the future you can change people's or the culture there of mobility, that people start more to bike and walk instead of taking cars?
Definitely.
What do you think?
Definitely. I think up until now, people didn't have an option. So, when you don't have an option, you are programmed to think that we cannot do without a car. But now with Dubai's 2040 plan and more soft mobility being introduced and already cycling tracks being built as we are talking here, and that option is now available, which will be more available moving ahead.
Yeah.
When it's available, and Dubai has a metro, which is we already have 2 lines. It got extended until the Expo site. It's being extended even more. As public transport becomes more accessible and starts connecting different neighborhoods in the city, and also soft mobility options are available, I think that cultural shift will happen. And at the same time, there is a lot of talk about electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles. So the mindset change that probably happened in the Scandinavian region, or in Sweden, Denmark, or Norway 30 to 40 years ago, that mindset change is happening in Dubai or Riyadh right now.
Okay.
So it is going to take some time.
Yeah.
But I'm very hopeful, and I'm very excited for the change to happen.
Yeah, very interesting to hear that. And I hopefully, we're gonna follow up this conversation when you have when you start to implement
exactly.
Working with more projects.
More projects on such projects.
Yeah. So the last 2 questions. The first one's gonna be you giving me and the listeners 3 takeaway messages. How can we create better future cities?
I'll again say context is key. Understand where you are sitting, understand whom you're designing or planning for, and what works best in your local context. It's very, very important. Second would be for all the young people listening, don't doubt yourself. Be out there, voice your opinions, even if they don't matter to somebody, or even if what you're thinking is not right. It's just always easier to voice your opinions and get a feedback which can help you grow. And the last thing would be that network, because in today's day and world, while we all are having to solve the same things, and one major challenge is climate change, and if 70% of the world is going to be living in cities, it's important for us to network, learn from each other, and also help each other grow towards coming up with better solutions that can help us come over the challenges that we have in front of us. So yes, that would be my 3 takeaways.
Yeah, 3 takeaways. And the last question is going to be you asking it to me, to the listeners. What is your question?
I would really ask the listeners about how would they evaluate themselves when they are looking at making that change, and ask each and every time that am I making small changes that are going to lead to a massive impact, or I'm just making a massive change which is not going to have any impact. I think this is a question that I ask myself every single time I'm doing something or I'm approaching something, and that is something that I would just ask you to ask yourself every time, and the listeners, every time they are approaching a problem or a solution. So yeah.
Shweta, thank you so much for giving your time to record this interesting conversation, and hopefully we keep in touch and we record more episodes with you.
Likewise, Mustafa, thank you so much, and Sweden is beautiful.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. You learned something new and also got inspired by the guest. Don't forget to share the episode on your social media and recommend it to people you think they are really interested in this topic. Thank you so much again for giving your valuable time to Urbanistica podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif. Keep up the good work. Keep loving cities.